Okay. Where's Muhammad Taha? Muhammad Taha. Barak. Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Alhamdulillah, it's good to be back here. Alhamdulillah, I feel like I'm back home with my family. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Friendly faces. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so today I'll be talking about an interesting topic. My hands sometimes can be a little shaky, so I can go back and forth with this. I hope you can hear me. If you can't hear me, let me know so I can try to stabilize that. Is this good? Yeah, I might get tired, but okay. I'll use my strength. Okay, طيب. Bismillah. So this is, some people wonder, what does that even mean? Being in a toxic relationship. What does it mean to be in a toxic relationship? And the easiest way sometimes to define something is to define it by its opposite, right? And I hope that when I say relationship, you're not thinking only marriage or romance or bromance or any kind of specific kind of any relationship can be toxic. So relationship between siblings can be toxic, between friends can be toxic, between parents and their kids can be toxic. So any relationship can be really toxic, and it's important to kind of define where this toxicity is, and the goal is to define and learn and also remedy this toxicity, so we can have a better quality of life, better relationship. And does this work? That's this way. Yeah, awesome. This is good. Can you hear me okay this way? Is this good? Everyone can hear me in the back? Sisters, can you hear me okay? Okay, good. All right. So what is a toxic relationship? One of the better ways to define what is toxic is to define the opposite of what is not toxic. What do you think the opposite? What would be the opposite of something that is not toxic? Toxic, like poisonous, right? What is something healthy? Let's say more. Healthy, beneficial. What else? Yeah, mind games. I want you to guess the word in my mind right now. What is that word? If you eat something healthy, it's not toxic. It's nutritious. What? Pure. Safe. Okay. Any toxicologists in the house here? Pathologists. I know there's a pathologist in the house. Yeah, healthy, but like the word I'm looking for is nourishment. Nourishing. Like this something is very nourishing for you. And this is exactly how relationships should be. They should be nourishing. They should be beneficial. And if they stop being that way, if this relationship is not nourishing you, emotionally, psychologically, religiously, spiritually, physically, if it's weighing on you, if this relationship is a burden, if it's a worry in your head, in your life, then this might be that this relationship is toxic for you. Both of you, not just you, whoever that person is, but for both parties, it can be toxic. Now, relationships are interesting because what is the first relationship that we've ever had as human beings? With our mothers, right? With our mothers. And how was that relationship? Toxic? Nourishing? Very nourishing. Very. Right? Our mothers, they fed us, they loved us, they hugged us, they cleaned us, right? So we became people, became a person, a human being because of our mothers. Some of us are dads maybe as well, or aunts, whoever that figure was in your life, who fed you, cleaned you, loved you, hugged you, listened to your cries and your tears, whoever that person is, planted the seed of what does it mean to be in a relationship in your life. They planted the first seed about what does it mean to be in a relationship. And some argue that whatever relationship you build after that is reminiscent, is an echo of that first ever relationship you had with your mother, or the mother figure, should we say. So then it's important to realize that this should be a thread that is continuous. Like I should feel the nourishment in the relationship and the lack thereof, because I kind of knew what does it feel to be in a healthy, quote unquote, nourishing relationship. Something else about relationships and how nourishing they are. You know, we as a race, as a human race, you know, we're probably, you know, we've taken the relationships to another level, right? Why? Because we are social beings. So there's a social aspect as well of our relationships that might not be available in other species. Now, if you look at the animal kingdom, there are you have the insects, right? The spiders, you know, the babies, the eggs, they lay on the mothers. The mothers carry them, and then they hatch. And mother says, "Chop chop, all right, yalla, go. You guys are good, yalla," and they just take off and they go. Mammals are not like that. So mammals don't do that. Mammals, they groom their babies, they lick their babies, they hug their babies, they feed their babies. Starting with whales. Whales are mammals. You know that, guys? The whales are mammals. It's mind blowing. Yeah, whales have empathy. Whales have empathy. Now, I heard once a guy who was not a big fan of evolution theory, and he was talking about collaboration in the animal species, right? And he talked about how whales collaborate. If there's a weak whale that is ailing and failing in the ocean, they can't go up to get oxygen. You know, the whales, other whales come and push that whale to the top, so that whale can get some oxygen before, you know, they die. So there is empathy in the animal kingdom, even in mammals that are not human beings. So it becomes really ugly then if mammals have this empathy and some humans don't have that empathy. It's really a big problem. It becomes a big problem when the relationship that we have are not empathic and nourishing relationships. It just goes against nature. It goes against our very nature, even the nature of even quote unquote lower mammals. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because sometimes we normalize toxicity. And it's so not normal. It's so not even physiological. Some researchers say that it's oxytocin in mammals. Mammals, when they give birth to babies, the oxytocin levels go off the charts. We all have oxytocin. When you even fathers have more oxytocin when they have a baby, when their wives deliver. Their oxytocin is off the chart. When you pay charity, oxytocin hits the roof. Right? That neurotransmitter. People say this is like the hormone of love, oxytocin, of empathy, right? It's created in mammals, but even more in human beings. So it is very difficult to accept the fact that a toxic relationship should be tolerated, or should be okay, or could be, you know, dealt with in any other means except that to remedy that relationship, because nobody has to suffer like that. You know, as we talk about toxic relationships, again, I want to remind ourselves that this is not just the romance of romances. Any relationship can be toxic. So what are some examples that kind of give you some hints that this relationship is actually toxic for me? What are the red flags that can tell you, okay, you got to be careful because this is not okay. What's happening is not okay. The first thing is what I said before. This is kind of the definition of what a toxic relationship is. A relationship where the emotional burden of the relationship is larger than the nourishing part of it. So it weighs on you, it troubles you, you go to sleep, you're unhappy, you're struggling with it, it's on your mind. So that means it's kind of toxic. So there are a few red flags. There are a lot of red flags, but I want to discuss a few. So the first one is control. Control in the relationship, right? Now, this is a more difficult issue to discuss in a parenthood-childhood bond, right? Because parents do have a lot of control over their kids' lives, right? So I'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about friendship and romantic relationships, like in a marriage, for example, right? And this is a little murky, and this is very difficult to talk about, and it's very saddening to talk about. And if anyone is triggered by what I'm saying, please, I apologize. If you need to take a break, take a breather, take a break. If you've been in a domestic violence relationship and you find this triggering, please take care of yourself, because self-care is important. But oftentimes in our communities, control in a relationship, in a toxic relationship, is put in a religious disguise, the disguise of religion, right? And men who are narcissists, who are toxic in their relationships, will start pulling a hadith and ayat to kind of legitimize the narcissism, their toxicity, right? Like abusing women or their kids physically, or being mean, or control. And this is a big one. Control is one of the bigger ones, actually, in toxic relationship. Control of what? Of everything. Their bodies, what color to wear, what color not to wear, right? Where you go, what do you do? And it progresses even further to actually control your circle of friends in life. And this is where the control leads to isolation. So you become, in this relationship, you can become isolated, where there is no friends, there's no family. And this is very common in the cycle of abuse, very common in domestic violence relationships, very common in toxic relationships. And from our standpoint as Muslims, we sometimes struggle with that. I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes we struggle with that, to understand, like, what is okay, what is not okay. If you grew up in a toxic household, if you grew up in a household where women were belittled and were told no quite often, if you get into such a dynamic as an older person, you might feel okay to being in a toxic relationship. So it's important to realize those parallels. If you grew up in a certain household, you might find it okay to be in a toxic relationship, and that will weigh on you eventually, and that will be a struggle. So control, that's one of the bigger red flags. And isolation, specifically, which is a form of control, where you can't leave the house. You have to tell them where you're going. Wherever you go, you have to tell them where you're going. Well, why is that? Well, religiously, a lot of men, misunderstand, misconstrue the concept of qiwama. Qiwama, and its basic understanding is khidma. You are there to support your family, the khidma. And the scholars say qiyamatu taklif la tashrif, right? But a lot of narcissists take it as a form of control. You exit that door, you tell them where you're going. You have to tell them where you're going. This is my religious right to know where you're going. And we all know this is not the case, right? The other part of the isolation as well is many times related to family. You have to visit your family. I have to know if you're going to visit your family. Now, why is that? Why is the toxic person relationship? Why is the narcissist doing that? It's a form of protecting their dominance. They want to dominate. You will hear people who've been through domestic violence, women who've been through domestic violence, and men were abused by their wives as well. Not just women, men get abused sometimes by their wives too. You would hear them silent, sob and silent. Nobody knows about their pain. They're isolated emotionally. And everyone, knows that something is wrong. What's happening here? Why are they not showing up to events? Why are they not going to all these meetings? Why are they not coming to family functions? Something is happening. So that's the toxicity of this relationship. So control and isolation. Now, in other forms of relationships, even in friendships, that can be toxic and that can be quite controlling. I texted you an hour ago. An hour, like 62 minutes, I texted you saying, what's up? Nothing's off. Just take a nap. Well, nothing happened. Well, why you don't worried about you? Look, I'm at home. Why are you worried about me? I just worry. I want you to text me like immediately when you get the text. Don't I? Because I worry about you. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry about your worry, right? I'll try my best next time. And it happens again and again and again. And now you have to, tailor their feelings now, their anxiety about you. And then who did you go with? Well, I mean, I'm your friend. I'm not like your employee. Like I don't have to click in and click out every time I go somewhere, right? So this control is common also in friendships, not just in romantic relationships. Friendships can be quite controlling as well. Another form of toxicity is moodiness in the relationship. I was when I was in fourth grade, my best friend was someone who I thought was the best friend. Was a little kid who lived in a nearby building on our street, right? And he was funny. This kid was really funny, like spontaneous, funny, like a clown, really funny and witty and all over the place. So I thought that was entertaining. I thought, oh, this could be a good friend. Little did I know, but he was moody. He was moody. One day we walked back from school, like from a nearby. The bus would drop us off at a different street. We had to walk by together, back home together. He was upset that I wouldn't show him what's in my bag. So he dragged me and my bag on the floor. Like he just, it's like, Khalid, what just happened? And it scared me. And he wasn't really joking. He was like serious. He was really mad. I mean, this was a troubled kid, right? I can't tell you more about his life, but he was a troubled kid. But this was not a good relationship for me. So my mom just ended it. She called his grandmother who raised him, said, "Hey, Khalid cannot play with Othman no more. Khalid is scary. He's scaring Othman," and he was scared. So this was a toxic relationship for me, right? And that can happen with kids. So you be careful. You have little children, right? Their friendships, they can be quite toxic. It's important to pay attention to your kids' friends as well. Another form of toxicity in a relationship is belittling, right? شو بفهمك انت بالسياسة؟ تفلسف هلا بتحكي بالسياسة. You don't get it, politics, Let the expert talk here. ما شاء الله. شو اسمه هذا the famous politician عزمي بشارة talking ما شاء الله, right? And he's just watching تحكيش انت بالسياسة. Don't talk. I'll talk politics. Don't talk. I'll talk politics. شو فهمك بالسياسة? Belittling people in the relationship, right? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand that. I'm not sure this is an authentic hadith. MashaAllah. Scholar. MashaAllah. Bukhariya. MashaAllah. Belittling, right? Very toxic in a relationship. Very toxic. And that belittling can actually be masked sometimes as humor, right? And that's when you know it's toxic because it's repetitive. It's not just a one-time thing. A fourth grader would know this information that you don't know. Well, you keep saying that. Strange, you keep saying that. Why do you keep saying that? Well, that's a form of abuse. So that's toxicity, right? If it's a joke that is, once in a blue moon, and then you apologize after that and say, sorry, did that hurt you? I'm sorry about that. Then yeah, maybe it's not toxic. But if it's a pattern, if it happens over and over and over again, you feel superior, somehow something about you is superior in a relationship than the other person, you might be in a toxic dynamic. You might be, ruining this relationship, right? So that is also a very common theme of toxic relationships. The other part that comes also akin to humor and sarcasm is actually externalizing the blame on the person, right? So a fourth grader knows that, you don't know that whales are mammals? What? The fourth grader knows that whales are mammals, right? Well, we just said hurt me. Don't say it that way. That's not nice to say that way. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it that way. But you're the reason why I said it. Oh, no, I'm the reason why. So externalizing the blame all the time. Why do you keep yelling? Why are you so loud? Why do you get angry all the time? Well, you make me angry. Someone has an anger problem, right? It's not her, it's you who has the anger problem. So in a relationship, if you anger a lot and you're loud a lot and the whole environment at home is toxic because of your anger, mom or dad or woman or man, right? This is a hint for you that maybe you're poisoning the home environment with this toxicity. Yeah, be careful not to externalize the blame. If you're yelling top of your lungs and you're like throwing bottles of water, like if I flip this because I'm upset and angry, yeah, when you apologize, yeah, don't make it about the other person. It's you. Say, I'm sorry, I just lost it. It's nobody's fault. I have to go out for take a walk or something. It's I've been very stressed out recently, and I think I need a breather. I'm sorry. This is not me. Totally, that shouldn't happen. Versus, well, you guys are making me angry. You guys are not going to sleep at 8:35 p.m. every night. Let me watch my show. You guys are making me upset and angry. Oh, well, we have to self-reflect here. Because externalizing the blame is one of the bigger red flags in a toxic relationship. Alrighty. Another important one, and that's kind of very common also, and this is actually one of the sadder ones, kind of more sad. This one is when you feel that you've dissolved in this other person's life and world, where you almost lost the sense of yourself. Say you're like a driven person and you want to go to school and go to college and you get a degree, and you meet someone and you work in the relationship because I don't know, maybe it's a marriage relationship. Many times it is the marriage relationship, and you get busy, and then they're saying, yeah, I want you to pursue your dreams, your hopes, and then slowly and gradually you have a kid or two, and you're like, where are my hopes and my dreams? You're like, بالمطبخ, in the kitchen, like, no, this is not me. No, this is you now, because it's us, it's not just you. But how come you're going to school after 5 years of marriage, getting a PhD, and I'm not? What is this about? It's about you. It's about me. That's what that's about, right? So dissolving yourself and your dreams and dissipating for the other person, unless you agree on that, unless you say, okay, this is what I want, this is what I've envisioned myself doing. Or if times get tough, and times do get tough sometimes, people have to adjust their plans. Maybe you have to change jobs because you have to earn money for the family. As long as there's a consent, the other person is saying, no, I hear you. This is very hard, but we'll go through this together. But this is not toxic. But when it's toxic is when you're given false hopes and dreams, and there are the means actually to achieve those goals for you, but the other person does not want to see you elevate, does not want to see you, progress in life. They want to keep you under check, under control. This is toxic. Now, of course, it gets very bad, it gets worse sometimes when there's abuse in the relationship. If there's verbal and physical abuse, someone is like yelling at you all the time or calling you names or hurting you physically, then this is definitely, this is your signal. This is going to be very toxic and hurtful, especially if there are kids. It's going to be bad for the kids to be in this relationship like that. Some people are in a toxic relationship manipulators. Right, and this is, what gaslighting is? You heard the word gaslighting? Like you say something, they say something, and they're like, oh, this never happened. Who said that? I said that? I would never say something. You probably misheard me what I said. And then the person starts questioning their sanity. Like, am I sane? Am I like what's going on here? I'm sure you said that and did that. I'm sure you promised that this is something you would do. I promised? I don't promise like that. It's not me. It's out of my character to make these promises. Yeah, that's kind of gaslighting when people start questioning their own sanity. So this usually takes a legal turn. If like there's physical harm inflicted, then people have to ask, should I involve the authorities if that's taking place, so I can save the marriage and the kids? And I have to tell you that in my practice, I've had to do that many times. People come tell me, I'm hitting my kid. Not listening to I'm hitting. I say, I'm so sorry. You told the wrong guy. I'm a child psychiatrist. I'm a mandated reporter. Like if I don't report you to DCF, it's you're hitting your kid repeatedly. You're not you just can't do that, right? So it's important if kids are getting hurt, or if you're hurt in a relationship, and if it's getting really violent, that verbally and physically, especially violent, then you have to figure out a way to remedy that. It's important. All right. So the question is, what do you do? Right. If you find yourself in a toxic dynamic, toxic relationship, how do you address that? What do you do? The last one that I said, if it takes a legal turn, sometimes it has to take a legal turn. If someone is getting physically hurt, if that person has a temper, man or woman, like I said, I have friends, friends, who had to go to divorce because they were abused by their wives, right? This stuff happens. So whoever it is who's being hurt has to seek protection and safety. But what are some skills if things are not that bad? What are some skills that you are, likely to find helpful if you find yourself in a toxic dynamic? So the first sign that you have of a toxic relationship, you got to do these things immediately, not wait. Immediately, try work on these skills, because if it progresses with time, it becomes very difficult to actually get the help. So setting boundaries, immediately set boundaries. Yelling and screaming or belittling, you have to set boundaries. Say, I'm not okay with this. This is not okay. You're losing your temper. You're doing this. This is not okay. This cannot happen. I did not get into this relationship to be yelled at. I'm looking for a stable friendship. I don't want a controlling friend. I did not get married to be belittled and insulted like that. You're not going to do that to me. You're just not. So we involve our parents. We talk to someone, but this cannot happen again. It was a one-time mistake you made. That's, one is okay, but will never happen again. Setting boundaries from the get-go. Make sure that people respect your personhood, they respect your safety. Very important. Setting boundaries early on. Now, if the toxicity is a little more subtle, so they're not like abusive verbally, they're not like, but just subtle stuff. Like maybe your spouse has some narcissism in them, but not very bad, but little narcissism, especially around specific topics like politics, for example, right? What do? You try to not play into the dynamics, such as what? Like you were listening to a podcast about a political topic that your spouse is very narcissistic about. Like they have a PhD in this specific topic and they're so protective against it. And you just happen to listen to a podcast about it and you enjoy that podcast. So she or he come around and, what are you listening to? Well, just stuff. You're not playing the dynamic like that because they're like very narcissistic around this area. So you just protect yourself, not play into this. Because you cannot change someone's narcissism like that. It becomes very difficult, becomes contentious. It's going to get an argument. So you try to control the interactions. If you know what the area of narcissism is, control the damage if you can. So the other thing is, if this is a person that you can avoid, and you can actually limit the interactions with, it's not possible if this is a spouse, but if it's a friend, for example, you can limit that interaction. You can say, we'll hang out when we get the chance. We'll hang out at the masjid when I see you, when we see each other. I have, don't lie, but, be honest. And if you're studying, say, I'm studying now. I can't, I'm reading now, right? So you try to make sure that you limit the interaction, because if you go down the rabbit hole, it's just difficult to stop if it's very toxic and very controlling. And the other thing is, if it's really, really important for you, this relationship is really important for you, not so much for friendships, but like in families, for example, then seeking the help of a psychotherapist, a therapist, especially a family therapist, can go a very long way, right? And this is more difficult if the toxicity is in the sibship, like if your siblings are toxic to each other, or if the parents are toxic to the kids. That's very challenging. You're trying to establish your own life, an independent life as a person, right? Say you get married, for example, you have your own family. and the parents want more control over your life. They want to kind of interfere with your business. شو راح تسميها؟ شو راح تسمي بنتك? What are you going to call your daughter? Ah, what? Your son. What's their name? Shoo. So this becomes like it becomes a toxic situation. It's a crisis. I know families who go into crisis mode when there's a baby. You're supposed to just have fun now. Just hug the baby, kiss the baby, wipe the baby, feed the baby, and you just all have a good time. No, what is the name? I have to know. Why his father, not my, why my name? Why? I've had families like go in secret. In nufus, nufus, where you put the names, write the names, like not tell their wives, just go, like just bilayl, khilsa. Put the name down of his father. The deal is sealed. I'm not gonna say the name. But it really happens. It really happens. Very toxic controlling situation, right? So it's important to respect the boundaries, right? So setting boundaries for parents sometimes is healthy. To say, I understand you're worried about me. I know you love me, but this is my life right now, right? This is a good person. You approve this person. They're good. We're cool. Thank you so much. I love you, but this is as far as we go, right? Setting boundaries can be really important as well within families. Okay, so maybe I'll wrap it up with a couple of kind of short pointers, and then we can open up for a conversation discussion. Sometimes the toxicity is not clear, it's subtle. And you find yourself questioning yourself, why am I miserable? Why am I not happy? Sometimes the toxicity is not because of the person themselves. Like your friend, your spouse might not be toxic themselves, as a person. But the dynamic that you created when you got together as a couple is just a difficult dynamic. Let's say you are a social butterfly. You're social butterfly, right? And then your spouse is an introvert, a programmer introvert who loves the computer and who's stuck to the computer, and you want to go to every Eid party. They're like, yeah, but I have a paper due. What do you do? This is a struggle, right? Let's say you have OCD, like you like organization and structure, and why is this bottle in the middle of the table? It should be in the corner of the table, not here, where it doesn't make any sense to be here. What is this doing here? What is this doing here? A lot of families are like that. Maybe not diagnosed OCD, but like you like structure. And your spouse has ADHD, right? Kalsat al tawla, take your socks off, throw them in, let's have a party. It's fun, right? It's easy. Hey, take it easy. Take it. No, مش مشكلة. الأكل هون, I'll just wipe it like that. خلاص راح الأكل خلاص. It's okay. It's easy. It's not easy. I like my stuff clean, right? So this dynamic is very stressful. It doesn't mean that someone is toxic necessarily. So I don't want you to think about relationship and think about the troubles you have and say, oh, this is toxic. It might not be toxic, but dynamic might be difficult dynamic. So if that is the case, you have to kind of smoothen landing a little bit. So everyone has to inch a little forward, right? This bottle can be here. It's okay. I'm not going to eat the muffin on the table. Khalas. We'll meet each other halfway, right? So that's important to think about, because a lot of people, they break the relationships because of this mismatch sometimes. So mismatches in relationship are not necessarily by definition toxic necessarily, but something to keep in mind as you navigate. You're thinking about this relationship when you leave this halaqah today, as you think about your own relationships. If there's stress, it does not mean it's toxic necessarily. And I'll stop here, inshallah, and we can open it for questions, Q&As. Assalamu alaikum. فاكرك أنا تعالي sit in my chair. والله sit in my chair. Yeah.
Sometimes people cannot control themselves. It's called the impulse control disorder. And I have treated many of those people with certain medications to help them control their, because sometimes you can have them in family therapy or couple therapy, and the man, for example, say, just cannot help it. I feel like all the anger exaggerated in my head, and I just feel like beating somebody or breaking things. And this, I have successfully treated many folks who have this disorder, and none of them were Muslims, they were American. And I want to say that because many of the American cultured people, they don't believe in medications and in therapy in general. And I just want to let everybody know that this is available to control their impulses. Of course, this is if it's really out of control.
Yes.
But if it can be mediated with psychotherapy, that will be the best. So that's the only addition I want to
Anything
say.
else you'd like to add? Anything else?
Yeah, I have to add one more thing about parents with children when they reach adolescence and young adulthood.
Yes.
And sometimes the parents don't allow them to say new ideas, like they always control them as if they are still kids, like 4 or 6. But when they are growing in this period, they really want to find themselves. And the parents should be supportive of this process of maturing into adulthood. This I noticed in the Arabic culture is very common, that they continue to control and have the upper hand of all decisions in this stage of life. So this is like I want people in our community to pay attention to. That's the only things I have to say.
This is amazing. And as you were talking, I'm remembering, um, our basic psychology, right?
Mhm.
One of the biggest mashayikh of psychology, Sheikh Mashayikh in psychology, Eric Erickson, right? And if you want to learn something psychological today, just go to Google and just Google Eric Erickson.
Oh yeah, he talked about the stages of life and
Yes.
the adult,
Stages. Yeah.
the adolescence, and yeah, the progress of life. Yeah.
Do you remember, Doctora, what he said about, I think the third stage, he calls it initiative versus guilt.
Yes.
Yeah. So the kids of that age group will try to initiate ideas and questions and thoughts and feelings, and they share with you what they think the best course of actions is, and it drives us crazy because we know how to drive, and they tell us how to drive and tell us take a right turn here. They're initiating, right? It's part of the growth experience, right?
That's right.
But then what happens if you suppress that all the time? شو عرفك؟ شو فهمك؟ شو بيعرفك؟ What do you know? You're just a little kid. You stop talking. Guilt.
They feel guilty that they even initiated the idea, and this is the process of finding things, discovering things. So we should promote that.
Yeah.
Promote the to look for further than what's in their hands.
Yes.
And you find also the constructive behavior, that they want to build things or
Yes.
do things, and they will be suppressed, and they will not allow their imagination to go on.
Yes.
No, it's okay. I think I finished. Well,
No, this is great. I love this conversation. So suppress, right? You said the word
right, suppress.
So when you suppress a child's behavior, kids are tricky, right?
Mhm.
Because they can act out and they can be naughty. You think they're naughty. They think they're exploring. They think they're exploring something new. And you're like, stop playing with this bottle. You're going to spill it. He's not playing with the bottle. He's trying to figure out what happens when the water spills. There's a little crack here. Would it spill? Would not spill? It wouldn't spill. I thought it would. But the kid will teach you it doesn't spill, right? They're trying to learn, and you say, "Stop it." So what that leads to is you suppress them. You
Right.
suppress their curiosity. So that leads to guilt and depression. Younger kids who are born in very violent households where there's just nobody's allowed to talk or speak, or you hear families like your mom raised 10 kids. ولا حدا حكي حرف. Nobody used to say a word. 10 kids they raised. Well, you know how they raised 10
Yeah,
kids,
right. Smacking.
شنكليتة. Yeah, بالشحاطة. Yeah, so it's terrible. So that kills the kids' curiosity and imagination, and you don't know what you're suppressing with kids. So the
Right,
biggest take-home
right.
message here: before you suppress a child, you gotta be careful what you're suppressing because kids are tricky. You might be suppressing curiosity, and you think you're just suppressing them acting out. You gotta be careful. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a quick question. You mentioned trying to avoid certain pieces of the relationship that you know can cause issues.
Yeah.
My question is a bit more general in terms of is there a way to solve a toxic relationship if only one side is agreeing to solve it?
That's very difficult. This is very difficult. Sometimes moving mountains is easier than changing someone, say, who's like a narcissist, or who has significant anger problem, but they don't want to get the help that they need. Then the person in this relationship, they have to decide: should I stay or should I go? Right? Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Is this better? Yeah. Yeah. So the brother was asking a question. Did you hear his question? Like, can you fix the relationship if someone doesn't want to be fixed? Like, the one person who's toxic does not want to be changed, does not want to change. What can you do? Right? So in our Islamic tradition, there is some remedy to that. So you bring, the families together to kind of discuss like what is going on here. Like they're not happy in this bond. What is taking place here? What is going on here? So it's then you see what you can kind of come up with. You see what wisdom you can bring from that gathering, and then see if things would change. Now, these gatherings are only as good as the knowledge of those who attended. So if you get the hakam from both sides of the family, let's say they're like angry men, right? Oh yeah, and then you start going at it, right? Yeah, it's not gonna get better; it's gonna get worse. Or their formulation, their definition of what's taking place is immature, or ill-informed, or just fallacious. The problem is not gonna get fixed. Like, what do you think is happening? عين ضربوهم عين جابوهم بالحيط. Evil eye. Evil eye. Let's send them to the sheikh. Then the sheikh will do the reading on them, and they'll be all good, inshallah, like mint condition. They'll be good. And they do the first ruqya and the second ruqya, and nothing is getting better. What's happening? 3 more years of suffering come again. Well, you haven't addressed the problem at its roots. So it's important, if there's a meeting like that you send someone who is a little psychologically savvy. So she can speak up her mind, he can speak up his mind, so we can understand what is really taking place, what is really happening here. I am guilty. I once in my youth facilitated one such meeting. A couple of my cousins were not getting along, and I was not a psychiatrist back then, right? I was a biology major, which is good, but not good enough to lead a meeting like that, right? And I used goodwill, right? I said, just inshallah things will be good. Let's go we're still a family. I used played the emotional card. Like, we're a family. We'll get through this together, inshallah. Things like that. And when I became a psychiatrist, I actually learned, retrospective, looking at this person, this husband in this relationship, he had a severe personality disorder. He had something we call paranoid personality disorder, a vicious disorder that had to be treated. Sometimes we treat that with antipsychotics sometimes. He would get jealous at the little thing. Like she went to put, the laundry on the, oh, 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 you're going out. Oh, I just put the laundry. That's all I did. Yeah, yeah. I see the other guy on the other side of the street looking at you. I see them. I see you. I see you. Like mad jealous, pathological, right? So they end up getting divorced eventually, and he's miserable and she's happy. Why? Because he wasn't treated. Yeah, he's still paranoid. He's still suffering and struggling, and he's not doing well because he was not treated. Nobody came to help this man. It saddens me. This is my cousin I'm talking about. He is a miserable 60-something old man. His life went by in front of his eyes. He lost everything because nobody diagnosed him and treated him the way he needed to be treated. So I think it's important to look at people who are in a toxic relationship, that the person who sometimes, like Doctora said, people can have anger problems. That is treatable. People can have, psychosis. They can have depression. It is treatable. Especially depression in men can look like anger, right, Doctora? When men get depressed, they get agitated. They get loud sometimes and angry, right? Yeah. So it's all treatable. So it's important to diagnose and treat if there is something diagnosable in the toxic relationship. Bipolar, yeah. 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 You can adjust it. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Very important. Very important. Education is key. Yeah. Education is key. Yes. Yes. 100%. We don't want to run away from our problems. Yeah, brother. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam rahmatullah.
Thank you very much for such an interesting and important topic, really. I just want to see if there has been any studies comparing different societies, cultures with the topic that we're talking about. And of course, I mean, the culture is different, the society itself is different. Has there been any studies to compare different cultures in this particular problem? The other one is when it comes to children in this time of age, I think it's very important to have some control over their behavior. Otherwise, we would run into a lot of problems in driving ourselves, or talking about Muslims, into the Western culture,
Yeah.
which is not acceptable to
Yeah.
us. So there has to be some kind of control, I
Yes.
believe. And do you agree or not?
100%.
Thank you.
100%. I'm going to repeat your questions. So, brother asked two questions. The first question, can you hear me in the back? Can you hear me okay? All right. So the first question he asked was about, is it lollipop for me or no? Okay, just the question. Okay, I kind of assume. Okay, all right, I'm cool with that. So two questions. The first one is about different cultures. Do different cultures, struggle with similar problems of toxicity in relationships? Was that this question that you asked? The answer is probably yes, but the manifestations are different, right? So the toxicity can look a little different from one culture to the other. Now, here's an interesting observation. Now, cultures are morphing together. A lot of things that we thought were culturally separated, or there are barriers between cultures. All these barriers are dissolving now. They're really dissolving, right? You can think about music genres if you listen to music, and culture used to be distinct. Like, this is not, you can't have Indian rap. What are you doing? Rap is American. Like, you just can't do that. But now it's everywhere, right? So all these barriers are dissolving. And as you dissolve these barriers, you will see that psychological manifestations of problems are going to start looking similar, right? Now, in the past, I've talked at other messages about the issue of feminism and women's rights, right? It's always an interesting topic. People get really feisty about it, right? So it's an undeniable fact that women are going to get more rights as time progresses. They're just going to pursue more rights. Whether this is culturally or religiously driven, we can have a conversation about that. We can talk about what is the role of women in the household. This is an important conversation. We should have this conversation, right? At the same time, this is taking place. This is happening, right? So sometimes this motion is moving way faster than what a man is expecting in the relationship, in the marriage. If a man is brought in a more traditional family setting, by the time that boy comes of age to get married, yeah, the potential spouse is like running miles ahead of what she thinks a healthy bond is, or what she thinks the rights are, right? So a lot of people can struggle now with this concept of like, what is like a good potential, a good match. And this is going to be very important to talk about these things very openly. Like, this is who I am. I'm a traditional man. I'm not saying like this is the religiously best thing to do. I'm not claiming this, the upper hand, religiosity and things like that. But this is who I am, right? I want to have like a household where, I come back home. I would like my wife to be at home. And this is who just I am. And clarity is amazing, right? And you will find women who would accept that. Not from like the lower kind of, but like really openly, enjoying this and wanting this. But I see where you're going with this, about the question about the culture and this toxicity question. It's an important question. The other part about controlling our children, right? So I think we have to qualify the word control. What does that mean? Because it means different things to different people, and also at what age group, and how I'm actually exercising that control, right? So as kids age, one of my mentors used to say that when they hit that age of 18, 20, your goal as a parent is to get fired and get rehired as a consultant. Like, you should wean yourself, out of their lives as a director to a consultant as they get older. And it doesn't happen suddenly. What's today? Happy 20th birthday, son. I'm fired. Alhamdulillah. You're on your own, man. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight like that, right? So I think it's important to talk about this control issue. And this dance, I think, between control and permission is really room for personalization, depending on what's your style like. I heard really a saint, like a Sufi saint, talking about how he raised his girls, when they were younger, and they're all pious, amazing, women. They can't hear me. What do I do? Can you hear me now? Is this better? I don't know what else to do. Yeah, but he said, I never, you're not hearing. You guys should sort this out. So he would say, I never told any of my daughters, come with me to the mosque. Oh, you haven't prayed Dhuhr? Go pray Dhuhr. he always said, حدا بيحب يصلي معي? Would anyone like to join me in the prayer? But he kept doing that all the time since there were 2 or 3. All the time. And he was kind to his daughters. He was a kind man. So they loved him. So eventually they said, well, he keeps asking the same question. We'll just pray with him. And then they started joining, and then they loved the salah, and he talked about the salah and things like that. So the control and permission dance is a difficult dance. Who else had the microphone here? Anyone? So there are some questions. There are some questions on paper here. Yeah. I see. Oh, more questions here. Okay, we're in business. All right, man. We'll do it. I think I'm good. As long as you're not writing in French, I'm good. Arabic, English, I'm good, but French I can't do. Un peu. Just a little. Okay, so what does this say? I'm here at the masjid. A lot of the mentees I'm close. The genuine problems, depression. My question is, how do you talk to their parents about their mental health problems, cultural mental illness in the Arab household? Right. So how do you broach the topic of mental health with families if someone is struggling with depression, or they're getting bullied, or they're having emotional problems? Is not an easy question. But assuming that you know that the parents and you're comfortable with them and you can approach them, right? Because if you're totally alien to them, it's going to be difficult to talk about this stuff. But if assuming you know them and you're comfortable talking to them, right? You know, one of the things that you can highlight is that this person appears to be suffering. The word suffering, suffering, right? Tends to be a resonant word, right? And nobody likes to be diagnosed. Don't go around diagnosing people. My patients don't like it, right? But if you talk about the deeper stuff, quality of life and feelings and the human connection. Your son, you know, every time he's in the halaqah, I see him, he's not doing well, he's sad. And I'm trying to see how we can help him. He's just not doing well. I see him suffering. I hate to see him that way. It makes my heart break for him. I'm not sure what to do. So I wanted to talk to you, like, is he like that at home as well? Is he like that all the time? What is he like at home? Right? So this language will start a conversation, and that's your goal. The goal is the conversation. And the conversation will open up gradually with time. And you can feel more comfortable saying it. I'm wondering if we have a counselor here in the masjid. And another day at the masjid was talking about depression and sadness in the youth, and he was saying that sometimes kids need someone to talk to. Someone not in the masjid, someone who's like a specialist who knows about sadness and depression. You know, I can help you find someone maybe like who's a Muslim you can talk to. But that language usually resonates, I think. Better than I think he has depression, just go see a therapist. Alrighty, can you turn a toxic relationship into a nourishing relationship with some help, a lot of dua? Yes, but don't do it alone, right? Because you might get manipulated. If you're in a toxic relationship and they're working on this stuff, this is why they call it the cycle of abuse, right? They promise that they're going to get better, right? But there's no metric for getting better. How do you know they're getting better? Like, you're inside you need an objective third person that would hold the couple accountable. Right? Like, I'm trying hard. I'm sorry I destroyed the door, but I didn't destroy your utensils. I didn't destroy the dishes this time. But this is not improvement. What do you mean? But you know how much you love your dishes? Yeah, but you're still destroying stuff. It doesn't matter. You're still angry. It doesn't help. Go see a therapist, right? So you have to have a metric for how things are getting better in the relationship. So sometimes you need a third person, a therapist or a third person, to take a look at what's happening. Otherwise, they'll be suffering. Alrighty, if there's toxic relationship between the wife and the husband, should we stop it even though there is kid, or should we try to find other solutions to keep the kids live a normal life? Yes, definitely seek family therapy. Family therapy saves marriages and lives and kids and everything. But people have to be ready to go family therapy. Both parties have to be buying into going to see a family therapist. It's important. So this is where community can have influence, right? You go to the imam, we're having problems. Imam says, I know an amazing therapist you guys can see, because this is not my cup of tea. It sounds like what you're struggling with is like psychological stuff, not religious stuff, right? Not everything is in my cup of tea. Not everything is religious that way. Sometimes it's psychological. Sometimes it is trauma. I'm not a trauma therapist. I'm an imam, right? So how about you go see a therapist who can work on these psychological issues? It's important. And it becomes mandatory, right? Obligatory from a religious standpoint. Al-islah bayn al-nas, right? It's an obligation. We have to make islah. And islah doesn't always happen in the masjid. It can happen anywhere. But the title is still the same. Islah can happen at a therapist's office, can happen in the masjid, can happen with a pill if you have bigger problems. So when if you're depressed and angry and resentful and agitated and destructive, your faridah, your islah is to take your medicine, man. Cool off. This is your islah if you have an anger problem. Right. Same with you. If you're yelling all the time as a mother, yelling at the kids all the time, yelling all the time. Why are you yelling all the time? It is impossible that these kids, will not be disciplined anyway than just yelling all the time. Maybe you're stressed out. Maybe go see a therapist. Maybe you're not enjoying motherhood. That hurts. Yes. It's okay. It's okay to say, I don't think I'm enjoying motherhood right now. It's tough. It's painful. I'm an immigrant. I don't have an extended family. It's just me. Me and the babies at home. I'm feeling lonely. Yes, it hurts, but it's real. This is a real pain. We're not going to avoid that pain. We're not going to shy away from it. We're just going to have to say it. I am not enjoying motherhood right now. I need some help. I'm yelling a lot. I need some help. It's okay to say that. Okay, so that's another question. Let's see, what else is there? 7, yeah, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, so this is over. Yeah, bullying, tanammur, is that part of a toxic? Yes, absolutely. Bullying is a toxic relationship. So bullying is dangerous. It can happen online. It can happen in person. It can happen by proxy. So all forms of bullying can be toxic and should be dealt with. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah. Yeah, big problem. Yeah, so what do you do if you live with a person whose preference is their mother more than their wife? She's suffering because of that. What should she do? And this is common in the Arabic community. Too much details. Too much detail. Did she sign their name or? All right, just be discreet. Alrighty. So it is a real problem, and it's the relationship of the Arab mother with her boy. Right? Muhammad. Right? I don't have any daughters, right? By my family, my nickname is Abu Mahmoud. I don't have Mahmoud, right? But they're all kind of, Yallah, where's the boy, right? Sabi. Even in the Arabic local language, لما يجي الصبي بنصلي على النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام دائما, right? But it made it through our proverbs, right? Yeah. So boys, wow, boys. And their mothers. So that's like, this is a very tough bond. It's a very tough dyad to crack. And this dyad can be sometimes toxic as well. And it also can be room for improvement, depending on how workable this dyad is. And this is, again, where the mother's influence can be toxic sometimes. Now it gets more difficult in mixed families where you live in the same household. It becomes very difficult to kind of find your space and to find your voice. But one of the things that you can try is make sure that you clarify that this is not a competition. This is not a competition. Like the mother fears the competition, like she took him away forever, right? So make sure that you are visiting, you're getting gifts, make sure that you're in touch. And so that's kind of something you can try. The flip side to that is, what if your jealousy is toxic? What if you're jealous from this bond that he has with his mother, and it's really kind of okay? Like, their relationship is just okay. I mean, mom and her son, they're just talking, or I don't know, texting, and just average stuff. Why are you jealous? Right? It goes both sides, right? So I think our religion teaches us to actually self-reflect all the time. So we self-reflect all the time. And how do we learn that? We learn that from the Quran, from the Sirah, from the Hadith, right? Like one famous way we reflect all the time. Is it hawa? Is it my nafs or shaitan? Or what is it exactly? Right? So we have to reflect and ask ourselves, am I getting a little too jealous from their bond? And if this is the case, why is it? How is my relationship with my mother? Right? So sometimes if you fix your relationship with your mother, you might feel less jealous when you watch him interacting with his mother, because this might be part of the problem as well. It's not one or the other. It can be two things that happen at the same time. Am I over jealous? Is he not doing his right? Let's meet each other halfway. I'm going to fix my relationship with my mother, and we're going to visit his mother, often, frequently, so she doesn't feel that I took him away forever and ever and ever, which is very sad for a mother, but it's part of life. Okay, and I think we'll stop here, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. بارك الله فيك, Dr. Othman, inshallah. Probably we can respond to some of the questions once we have you, inshallah. So